The NASCAR trial is officially over. Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin in 2311, Bob Jenkins in Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR is officially over. They've come to a settlement. Let's analyze. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR's antitrust lawsuit trial coming to a close today. The teams 2311, Front Row Motorsports, and NASCAR have come to a settlement. They will now have permanent charters. Every team will have permanent charters. Let's break down everything that has been reported today. It's been a crazy couple of weeks in the NASCAR world with this lawsuit. First off, a shout out to Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck. I've been following them for the last 9 weekdays straight. They've been covering this case, inside out in exceptional detail. So great job by them. Other guys, Kelly Crandall, Bob Pockers, of course, Eric Estep, all these guys doing a fantastic job. Feels like you were in the courtroom. You knew what was going on. You knew what the tone was through this entire process because of those reporters. So that was great to read their work, and you have to give so much credit to them because that's why we knew, what was going on the outside of the courtroom, us fans that were watching along, and everyone in the sports world watching along. But let's break down exactly what this means, right? Let's go back. Once again, there's now a settlement. No guy won or lost. NASCAR didn't win or lose. The teams didn't win or lose. So two teams, 2311, which is owned by Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, co-owners of a race team with 3 race cars a year. Big operation. They actually made the Championship 4 race just a couple of seasons ago with Tyler Reddick, driver of the 45 Toyota. And then Front Row Motorsports, owned by Bob Jenkins, another powerful businessman with multiple chain franchise restaurants around the country, is also on that same side, suing against NASCAR on antitrust grounds. And then obviously NASCAR is trying to take up for their own business, owned by Jim France currently, right? The son of Big Bill France, the founder of NASCAR in the 1940s. So certainly a massive lawsuit, two powerful entities going at each other. Michael Jordan versus NASCAR is a very powerful lawsuit. And what this really was about was what the settlement that we've got. Let's sort of break down exactly what we have now, right? So with this settlement, the teams now have permanent, or what we're calling evergreen charters, which is essentially saying that the team's charters cannot be taken away for any reason, or you don't have to worry about a contract renewal where NASCAR could change things or something of that nature, right? Because remember, these charters were given to teams after the 2014 season. The top 36 teams in points received a charter. That was a 10-year deal to have charters for 10 years where you're guaranteed in every race. You get higher purse money. You're essentially like a part of NASCAR, right, for those next 10 years. Then you have contract renewal. NASCAR wants to change up a few things. They're not guaranteed. They're not permanent. Well, now with this agreement, they are. This gives the teams a little bit more bargaining power than they would have previously had. So every team now will get their evergreen or permanent charters. And then the teams that did not sign the last agreement at the end of 2024, which is 2311 and Front Row, Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, Bob Jenkins, they will get their charters back with this settlement too. So that's also important because they were going to race or try to race as unchartered teams. If they'd have lost this lawsuit, both of them probably would have essentially gone out of business. It would have been so unprofitable that they probably would have both had to close their doors. But with this settlement, now they are obviously very back up and in business, right? And we'll see what happens moving forward. This does give the teams a little bit more power than they previously had. So that is big for the race teams, big for NASCAR. The charter agreements essentially are almost making you like a partner, which is something we haven't seen in NASCAR. If you look at the NFL, you look at the MLB, everything's kind of shared, right? And those are, I just bring those up because those are the only two major sports where I really pay a lot of attention to. Revenue shared, TV deals are shared, decisions are made amongst different team owners. I mean, if the Patriots owner and the Raiders owner get together, they make decisions together, and then you have obviously the commissioner at the head of it all. That's not what NASCAR's been like. It might look a little more like that now with a charter. You're essentially kind of guaranteed in every race. You have a say in what NASCAR does, and it does give the teams a little more power than they previously had. And that was the whole thing, right, of the lawsuit, trying to prove that NASCAR's a monopoly on antitrust grounds. And it seems like I was not in the courtroom. I don't want to speculate, but when I listened to the podcast today, I believe it's the Teardown from Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck, who were in the courtroom. They did say the tone seemed to be that NASCAR was sort of coming off as a monopoly, at least in their eyes, in the courtroom. Once again, I wasn't sitting in the courtroom. I don't know what it felt like in the courtroom, but that was their view. They said it did seem like 23XI and Front Row Motorsports, Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan were proving that NASCAR was a monopoly, and that's what it sounded like. And once again, NASCAR, I don't know if they finished all their witnesses either, so and didn't get to ask all their questions either. That's important to note also, right? And we talked about that first week. Remember, the teams went first, right, with their witnesses and asking questions. So even in the video I did last week, it sounded maybe a little more like I was leaning on the team side. Well, not really. That's just all that we'd heard up to that point, which is important to note. So yes, those teams now permanent charters, the two teams suing, get the charters back. Every team now is permanent charters, which is exciting. Hopefully it helps the sport. I mean, just a few quotes that we've got. I mean, I've cared, this is Denny Hamlin, cared deeply about the sport of NASCAR his entire life. Racing's all he's ever known, wanting to help the sport. A commitment to fans and the entire NASCAR community has never been stronger. I'm proud of what we accomplished, and now it's time to move forward and build a stronger future together that the sport deserves. A bunch of quotes like this from a bunch of different entities, other outside teams, Hendrick, I'm sure JGR released one. But yes, those are indeed big news. Now let's talk a little bit about, real quick before I go off, let's talk about something that's interesting. It's called I believe it's the 5 strikes rule. So it was 3 strikes. Now it's 5 strikes under the new agreement. I'm assuming this is what it'll be when it's written up with the evergreen or permanent charters. And here's Kelly Crandall. Somebody asked Kelly Crandall on X what exactly that is, and this is her response. It was the team saying... it was the teams having a say in the sport's governance, right? And I think this is important. The teams could give NASCAR a strike or a veto on something they didn't want changed or implemented. If it reached more than 3 strikes, the clauses were voided. Now that's now 5 strikes from everything I understand. So you need like 5. I'm assuming you need 5 different teams to be against a decision. And once again, that was something that was argued in court, as mentioned here by Kelly Crandall. It was used by NASCAR. They said that teams would fight against stuff like, potentially going to new venues or different racetracks. That could be more expensive for race teams. I'm sure potentially going international is not the most, not the biggest cost-cutting method that there is in the sports industry, or going to like a Chicago street race, traveling far. That could have been some of those arguments that were made in court also. That's important to note. But yes, NASCAR does still have that 5 strikes rule with the revamped charter agreement, if I can call it that. I do want to mention another thing before I go off, and some people have speculated this was a big factor in why NASCAR decided to settle today, because before today, permanent charters was like off the table. Where like NASCAR was, it seemed from everything I saw that NASCAR, Jim France, the owner, was like, no, we're not giving you permanent charters. We are staying away from that. Until today, when they actually did settle and gave the teams the permanent charters. And one of the some things went back to a statement from the Bass Pro Shops founder, Johnny Morris, who has a big say in what, or not a big say, but a big part in the NASCAR world. They sponsor the night race every year, been a big sponsor, been a big partner for the NASCAR industry for a long time. He had some interesting comments, and I'll kind of just pull them up real quick. I have so many different screenshots and stuff. But yeah, here's the entire thing. It's 2 pages long, very long. I'm not going to read each thing. But I did notice something interesting. This is him defending his friend, Richard Childress, who obviously there were some I would say, can we say rude things said against him from the leaders of NASCAR, those governing NASCAR. Even saying here that he is outraged by how Richard and his family have been treated by some senior NASCAR leaders. So yes, that was a sort of a statement released by Johnny Morris today. Wanted to mention that did come out last night. Actually, last night that statement was released. So yeah, really interesting statements there. That is unfortunate. I'm never one to try to, like I said, I'm not walking around the NASCAR garage. I'm not talking to these people in the industry day by day. But I never like to judge somebody on private conversations right away. Would I be upset if I was Richard Childress? Maybe. It is certainly upsetting that was released and that has been said about a owner of NASCAR, owner of a NASCAR Cup team who's owned a team for a long time and had maybe not as much success as far as championships go the last few years, but overall is a very successful team owner. in the NASCAR Cup Series, and extremely successful business owner outside of even the NASCAR world. So yeah, that was unfortunate. So yes, the Bass Pro Shops founder, Johnny Morris, did release that statement last night. That could have had a little bit of pull also, at least from what I'm hearing about the ultimate decision made today. So yes, that is it from the lawsuit. I hope I did a solid job covering it. This is way off tone. I'm really good at analyzing what happens on a racetrack, on a field, but when it comes to this court stuff, maybe not as good. So I hope it was understandable what I was saying. But yeah, here's the last quote I want to show, reading all this stuff in front of a camera. But Denny Hamlin did tweet today, or on X today, right after the settlement was made. Standing up isn't easy, but progress never comes from staying silent. The reward is knowing you change something. So yeah, maybe somebody can take that and use it somewhere else or something of that nature. But yes, that's it for the NASCAR antitrust lawsuit for now. And that's going to be it for me until probably 2026, unless we get, moving out of my apartment next. So unless we get some major news, probably not a whole lot you'll hear from me until January comes around, and then we got to start getting ready for the new season. Stuff will start breaking. We're waiting on a potential playoff or reamp or new ways to crown a champion. We'll certainly follow that. But yeah, I want to thank all the fans that watch Dirty Air all year long, all the fans that watch NASCAR Cup racing all year long, and of course, it was an exciting season. The lawsuit, the trial definitely added something to the end of this year for NASCAR fans. But that's it, really all there is to describe. And for the last time in 2025, let's get rowdy.